It's
Oh,
all
hold on.
good.
Let me mute that. Sometimes, the stream just gets messy. So we always try to figure out, we'll troubleshoot, work with it as we keep going. So
That's
it's
what I do
great to
for a
have
living,
you on.
improvising in flight. So we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you're a really impressive guest. So, like I said before the podcast, after researching all that you've done, I mean, you're incredible, man. Like 5 different languages. You've worked for IBM, Microsoft. Um, what is
Not at
the
the same time, but yeah, I have worked for
not at the
both.
same time, but still an impressive resume, right?
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
I would love to get to know more about you. I'd love for my chat to get to know more about you. And as we keep going, there's going to be some people that are going to ask questions. So we'll stop. We'll take some questions. We're not going to take too much of your time, I promise. So thank you for coming on.
It is my pleasure to be here and a pleasure to meet all of your audience. I'm happy to
Yes.
be here, share some ideas. Really, the resume I think is the least important part, but I've always had a mindset of growth and self-improvement. And over the years, I've learned and I've experimented many things. Many have not worked, but many have. And so over the years, I've acquired at least a little bit of practical wisdom that I'm happy to share. And as I told you before, I'm open to talk unscripted about any subject. I'm passionate about many things, but technology certainly is one of them, which is what I do for a living. So innovation, disruptive innovation, new technologies, that's something I'm extremely passionate about. But from there to all branches of science, philosophy, art, whatever, right? I've been a skateboarder all my life.
I mean,
So
really,
skateboarding, kickboxing, bunch of things, right?
you
I'm
have a whole arsenal of hobbies. I mean, it's crazy what you have done. So, I mean, you even did you were on a TV show there for a little bit. You were the host of a TV show.
that is correct. It was a very brief space, but I did it for 5 years, and that was live on national television back in Mexico where I grew up. Yes,
Yeah, I mean, you have this just like energetic, outgoing personality that I've just, when I saw you on the other podcast, I was like, I got to get this guy on. I got to get this guy on because you have your own platform that you talk about the success mind state. And so, or mindset. And I think that that's really applicable during this time period where everybody is, stagnant, or they're stuck in their homes, or they feel some type of way about, whether or not their goals are going anywhere. A lot of people hit that wall, especially when the shutdown, the quarantine went on. And I think you offer so much wisdom for people that feel like they're in a rut right now.
well, thank you. Yes, and we all go through those states of mind, right? There, and so, myself, of course, included. And you just need to look, at the big picture of things. And even when it feels, or it might feel, that the world is kind of falling apart, right, or collapsing onto you,
Right.
the reality is that crisis like what we have today seems very, very unique, but we've had multiple crises every few years, right? And just 2008, 9, 10, there was this massive crisis, and then you go 10 years back, and the 2000, the bubble, the dot-com bubble, and the financial markets collapsing, and so on, lots of unemployment. And so, of course, when you are right there, when you lose your job and your source of income, it may feel terrible. Or for those who are fortunate to be having employment, or your business is still working, it can be still very stressful, right? To be in a
Right.
world where suddenly everything changed. And so, for anyone out there feeling like that, right, like the world may be collapsing on you, it is very important to hopefully you have already created some basic routines for yourself.
Of
But if you
course.
haven't, this may be a fantastic time to do it, right? Some basic things to keep you in a good path, right? Discipline, like, basic things like a night routine, a morning routine, an exercise routine, some healthy nutrition, routine basics, all of those little things that you do, which again, I call the success habits. When you piece all of those little things together, that help maintain that whole foundation of your life. And even if one of the aspects may collapse, right, whether it's your job or breaking up from a relationship or whatever else may be, right, if you have all of those different elements of your life that you build for yourself, then it's much easier to go over anything, right, really.
Right. I think it's about really being proactive and knowing where you sit currently, and just knowing that life circumstances can change at any moment. So, with my family, we had a situation where my mom was making some good money at one point. She was making really good money, and then all of a sudden she got hit. She lost her job. And so we weren't proactive about it. And, thinking back, we're thinking in retrospect, like, dang, that hit a lot. And we thought about it. My mom was like, I wasn't really proactive with it. And, she ended up blowing through her entire savings. And it's creating these successful mindsets that you're talking about. And it really comes down to being proactive, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, definitely. Being proactive I would say, is one of the elements, right?
Right.
Another one I would say is extremely important is being disciplined. So building a discipline in all the, again, different aspects of your life, right? Your health, even your personal relationships, even your job, right? You just touched on, finances, right? You lose your
Right.
job, and if you haven't built a discipline to save and invest, right? And control your expenses, basic things. And so yes, being proactive about situations is very important. Being disciplined, and then again, when I say mindset, beyond like the fluffy concept, right? But this really, everything starts inside your mind, right? Everything, every incredible business, every great innovation that we know today, things that we're very accustomed to use, right? Wireless devices or whatever you can think of. They started with a person who believed in something that didn't exist and had that mentality that it could be done, right? From all kinds of innovation, right? The aviation industry. There was a time not too long ago where thinking on getting 200 people and fly across the ocean was absolute madness. And there were people who believed it was possible, and they made it happen because they had the mindset. But then with that comes, if you just have a very positive mindset and positive attitude, but you don't take action, you don't get anywhere, right? So
Right.
I would say that mindset is extremely important. Maybe 1% of the equation, and a very important 1%, but the other 99% of the equation comes with the endless hours of work and having, again, a mentality where you are ready and capable and prepared for failing, right? I think failure is something that, culturally over the many years, the way it has been communicated to the young generations is, and it starts from school, right? Is creating some kind of adversity to failure.
Right.
And so I'm not telling people go and, fail purposely, but what I'm telling people is be mentally comfortable with failing a little bit above your limit. So in other words, actually, if you are not failing, if you say, oh, I've never failed, well, maybe you are not putting yourself in situations where you're competing just a little bit of your comfort zone, right? So if you're not failing, it might be that you're not stretching yourself.
Right.
So it's very important to be willing to stretch yourself, fail, but then learn from that experience. I call it purposeful failure, right? So it's not just some random failure, but it's a failure towards a specific target or goal. And as you start to move in that direction, you prepare, you learn, and then you go and execute, and then you fall short of what you needed. So you, in theory, fail, but you don't take the failure because you stand up again and you try it again, try it in a different way, right? Through a different channel, through a different person, at a different time, multiple ways until you finally start to get closer. And that's what all champions have in common, right? The most successful people, whether in business, entrepreneurship or corporate business, science, certainly science, right? Science is the result of failing hundreds or thousands of times until you finally get to the true answer. And sports, the most successful people are the ones who are willing to fail multiple times, but continue learning and improving with that mindset until you get it right.
I think that's very important. I have a question for you, but what I'm going to get to real quick is chat, because we have a lot of people tuning in real quick. So I just want to get to everybody, just say, hey, we got Dell, we got Ark, thank you, Kayla, for the sub. I appreciate it, guys. Dell, I'll get to that question in just a minute. We got Garen, we got Crook in here. What's up, Chandler? Hello, everybody, and Zach on YouTube. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This is Mr. Pavel. So so my question is, that process of failing sounds a lot like the creative process. It sounds like, because I know you talk a lot about the disruptive innovation, and it sounds a lot like the creative process, where you try different things in different modes of avenues, and you try from different corners of the room, per se. And whatever angle you can hit this problem from, it might not be the right angle, but at least you got that checked off. And so you could say, all right, well, that's checked off from this side of the angle. Let me try it from this side now. And you kind of go down the list. You kind of go down this checklist. And it sounds a lot like the creative process. And I think that is really important when you're talking about disruptive innovation. I said that wrong. Disruptive innovation. There we go. Tripping over my words here. But I think that's incredibly important, especially when you're trying to foster these mindsets, or these successful mindsets, where you're targeting purposeful failure.
Correct. Yes, definitely. And that's a great connection that you're making there, right? With the creative process, which certainly leads to innovation, and in kind of the more kind of mundane life, because not all of us get to create innovative technologies, right? But in our own life, having that understanding that it is okay to try and fall short of what you wanted to do is perfectly fine. It's actually, again, it is a necessary process. It's a necessary set of steps. It's an iterative process that can happen multiple times, right? Before you finally get it right. And so when you understand that and you feel very comfortable with trying something and not getting it right the first time around, and not getting depressed or disappointed, you may be looking for a job, right? How many times we've all had a job interview, we were so excited, and we just don't get the job, right? You shouldn't take that as failure. You had an experience, you had an opportunity. And for example, in that case, what I've advised, people, I have, some mentees and people I coach, and from my own previous experiences, right, is have a truly open mind to reach out to for example, to the interviewer, right, that you didn't get the job, and sincerely ask, hey, I would truly want to know what were some of the shortcomings that I had on my interview, so that I can do better on my future interviews for other jobs, since I didn't get it with you. What did you see I did right? What did you see I did wrong? What was I missing? What do you think is missing in my resume? What was missing in my conversation, my interview with you? And what is missing in my background in general for you to think I'm qualified for this job? And sometimes there may be things that you actually have, but you just failed to communicate, right? So by just asking that question with that growth mindset, go and learn instead of just go and get depressed, you can, take note, and whether it's, add it to your resume if you already have it, or go and study it so that you know it for the next time, or again, if you just missed to communicate because you were nervous or whatever, you forgot, you didn't think it was important. Now you know, and you'll go to the next interview, you'll get it.
Right.
But guess what? Maybe the next interview, the other person will think that you're missing something else and you'll fail again. That's fine. Learn what you missed, and eventually you'll have the whole thing ready, right? And then that's how you become a champion. When you're really, really willing to, again, fail, learn from your failure, learn from the feedback from others. Feedback is a gift, right? Sometimes people can get defensive. Feedback is a gift. And if someone is going out of their way to tell you something that they think you could do better, you should be so grateful and say, well, thank you so much. Sincerely, right?
Right.
And if you have that mentality, little by little, and especially, life has this cumulative, power. It's like investing, which we can talk about, right? The power of compounding. You put $1,000 here, and with a very small 5 to 7% growth year over year, in just 6 years, that money is double. Whether it's $1,000 or $1 million, doesn't matter. It doubles, doing nothing, thanks to the power of compounding. So that same power of compounding applies to yourself, to your personality, on how you can grow exponentially thanks to compounding if you have that mentality of learning and growing.
Right. So Crook, thank you again for the sub. I don't know if I went ahead and said that. So I have a question. Do you think that mentality, the success mentality, being positive and accepting feedback has kind of fallen by the wayside with today's society in 2020 especially? Do you think people fall prey to the victim mentality? So if they don't get a job, per se, if they went to a job interview and they didn't get it, they don't start looking at what they could have done better. They end up looking at what they did wrong, or why the employer doesn't like them, or why the employer is wrong. Do you think that's, that has something to do with the success mind state?
Well, I don't like to overgeneralize.
Right.
So, everyone, across a very wide spectrum of shades of gray, right?
Of course.
And so I cannot say, this is what's happening to our generation, but certainly it does happen, right? So I think there is, just this point can be an area of opportunity for a lot of people, right? Mm-hmm. To really, have a one-on-one, kind of with yourself and say, am I really receptive to feedback? Am I really taking, my perceived failures as an opportunity to grow? Or am I just getting depressed and thinking, I'm not good at this, right? And if you are thinking, I'm just not good at this, guess what? Nobody was good at anything, right? The best basketball players, you can go across any sport, any part of like science, business, whatever. Nobody was born good at something. It's thousands of hours of practice, right? Which eventually lead to success.
Right.
Hundreds of failures in a business that eventually lead to getting it right. So it applies to all aspects of life. And certainly there are many people of all ages and generations and so on who embrace this, but for anyone who might not yet, definitely is a good thing to do, right? Something to make the effort to try and incorporate.
Right. And so Dell asked the question. He said, what's your advice for building and maintaining a strong team? And what's up, Juan? Good to see you, buddy.
Building and maintaining a good team. Well, certainly, and again, this is not my own wisdom. It's just taking it from so many other people and experiences. It starts with getting the right people and the right people for the job. Right? So
right.
What is the team about? And so getting the people who have, and sometimes, and it's very important. So let me say this. Certain level of proficiency on a particular skill for a particular job is very important, right? Mm-hmm. So if you want an accountant, that person should know a little bit of accounting, right?
Right.
So that's like the basic, like functional knowledge related to the functional job that needs to be there. So don't get me wrong. But in addition to that, having that, covered at least the minimum level, sometimes kind of in terms of like hiring or recruiting or just, at the more kind of casual way, if you're a young entrepreneur, bringing into your team a friend or whoever, sometimes getting the person with the right kind of what is called the cultural fit, right? Someone
Mhm.
with the right personality, with the right attitude, with the right mindset, back to the point, right? Sometimes those soft skills can take you a much longer way than the hard skill of actually knowing accounting right now, how to do finance, or how to do math. So you need to find that a, a complement of those two elements, right? The
Right.
soft and the hard skills, and that's kind of the very first point of getting the right people, and then maintaining the right people. Well, it's a series of things that apply. So there is a lot about the leader, right, that gets translated into the team and permeated down through an organization, right? Which is you need to exercise, lead by example and practice those qualities that you want to see on your team, right? So be transparent, be honest, be open to their feedback. Don't think that because you have the higher position, you have the higher answer, right? The right answer may come from anyone. So building that team, a very important element for building a good team is creating an atmosphere of trust and respect, where everyone feels important, respected, valued, appreciated, where everybody's fairly compensated. It's not just about appreciation and saying I love you, but there's actually people are getting fairly compensated for their fair, contribution
Right.
to
And
the
I
team. Go ahead.
Right, and I've read some leadership books, and I think that they miss out on that point that you were saying, where it's not just love and appreciation, because that's what I hear in a lot of leadership books, and I never hear the discipline side. It sounds like I never hear how to like correct behaviors or correct a certain culture, because I've always heard the cultural fit. And I guess my question is, do you think it's easier to build a culture from scratch? Or do you think that one can change a culture that they were already thrown into?
Yeah, so it requires different skill sets, right?
Right.
And so both things have their challenges, but both things are possible, right? And so there are leaders that are good operators, right? That they talk something that is already working, and then they can, manage it and grow it, whether it's, a team, a company, right? A business unit. And so being good operators of something that is there. There are leaders that have the ability to create and drive change management. And so depending on to that skill set as a leader,
Right.
you may be better, skilled for one thing or the other. Both things are possible, have their challenges. I, my opinion, and this is just I like to separate opinion from fact. My
Of course.
opinion is because I like to speak in terms of facts. So on to your question, my opinion is it is probably easier to create a culture from scratch because you're starting from zero,
Right.
whereas creating change, whatever was built, right now is kind of the negative numbers where you need to start kind of deconstructing to get to zero and then
Hmm.
start from there. So probably starting from scratch is easier. I I in my multiple roles in the corporate world as what is now known as an intrapreneur, right? An entrepreneur is the one who goes and invents a company and starts from zero. An intrapreneur is one who plays that same role within a corporation, like what I've been doing for the past many years, helping drive change for a specific business unit, for a specific piece of a larger business. And so, as an entrepreneur, I like the complexities that come with driving change, right? Change management, change of behavior, change of cultural practices. And it's exciting. I like it. Again, it takes a certain type of personality. It takes, what we could say, very, thick skin in many ways. And but again, many of the qualities that are important to drive change is transparency, being sincere, being able to communicate with clarity, what is the vision, why are you doing what you're doing, right? And what's in it for others. Every time I do a lot of like public speaking for different reasons, whether it's talking to clients or business partners, or with IBM, or talking about innovation on my own, or talking at universities about personal branding, so many different subjects. And every time I'm invited to talk to a group of people, whether it's one person or a group of people, I always ask myself something very important. What's in it for them? That's something that I think as a leader is extremely important to bring with you in everything you do. What's in it for the different stakeholders that are involved in what I'm doing, right? Mm-hmm. In the case of public speaking or sharing a message, talking to an audience. I think we live in a world which is sad and disappointing, where the so-called influencers are so focused on themselves and talking about how cool they are, or how, and ironically, they get followers, right? They do.
Yeah.
A whole other conversation. But really, I like to say an influencer is focused on, his or herself. A truly influential person is focused on the others. Mm-hmm. Is focused on making significant change and a positive impact on others. Not talking about how cool I am, how successful I am. Really, nobody cares. There's a saying, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care about them, right? So whenever I'm talking to anyone, I'm focused on what's in it for you. And if you have that ability to understand, which is empathy, right? What do you want to get out of me? And if you focus on understanding that, just as a sincere, aspect of your human interaction, if you do that, it has a very, very, very positive, side effect of it, which is it's going to be much easier for you to get whatever you want to get out of others, right? Hopefully that makes sense.
Oh, of course, 100%. And this is the kind of stuff I love, to be honest, because I there was a point to where I was not a good conversationalist. I'll be honest. I had my moments, and I could not think. I got so internalized with exactly what you were saying. I was like, how can I express myself to them? Like, how can I communicate? And I was really bad at it. And so I think I don't know where I read it. I think it was How to Win Friends and Influence People, or I don't
Which
remember.
Is a great book by
it's yes, fantastic book.
Yes.
But one of the points was, talk to people about them, like make them the center of the conversation. And then people love to talk about themselves.
What about you? Right, exactly. And look, I mean, you cited the best example of a great book that everybody should read, right? How to Make Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's probably like an 80-year-old book, and it's still a best-selling book because it's a timeless book, right? So anyway, great example. Yeah. And absolutely, that's what it is all about focusing on others sincerely, right?
Yeah, that's the thing that got me, because even though I read that, there was an aspect to it. There was that important aspect, is that sincerity, the genuine nature of actually caring about what they were talking about. Because I would give them talk, and then I just wouldn't care. I just really wouldn't care. Like, I wouldn't say anything. And so the conversation would fall flat. I couldn't think of any questions. I couldn't think of how to follow up. And it showed. It did. Yes. It showed. And people...
That's the technique. It shows. People know how to read, your intentions, right?
Yes, people are way more intuitive than they let on. And I found that out the hard way, because I was like... I would try and like get them talking about themselves, and then you could see people can read facial expressions and read emotional intent, and at a point I was just like my face was flat. I couldn't think of anything, and that's the key I was missing. What you just said was the empathy to connect with them, to actually genuinely care about what they were saying. And that was it. That was it. It's just trying to connect with people. That's kind of what I love, is figuring out other people. what makes them tick? What are their interests? What gets them going? And I love those small things. And I love that about you, because you have this leadership aspect. You have this motivational energy that just gets me going. Like, I'm like, yeah, let's get this conversation going.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Thank you.
I mean, I absolutely love it.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And look, it is extremely important, right? When you talk about communication, and again, if I may share just little nuggets of, my point of view, right? Hopefully valuable for some, is you touch on the communication, and yeah, it's very easy to try to start talking a lot, right? And it's very easy to think, hey, I talked for like 2 hours. I think I had a great conversation. And the other person like, oh my God, I never want to hear of this guy again, right? So actually, I have multiple female friends, and it's funny, sometimes they tell me about, they're dating with guys. And if there is one common thing that guys, get wrong, and again, from my, personal conversations with friends, is the guy trying to, I guess, impress the girl in some way, the worst mistake you can do is to start talking about how cool you are, how successful you are. Oh, I bought this and I got this and I got that. That's the last thing the girl wants to hear in a date, right? How much money you have, right? Unless you are with the wrong date. That's another
right.
Ideally, you want to be with a person who's not looking for that, right? So you should not talk about that. And so just as it happens, on the dating world, it happens in the business world, in the most, just so now extrapolating to the most, serious, formal, business-related conversations that may lead to a multi-million-dollar decision, right? It is not, and when you are on the selling side, which is where I've kind of built my career, right, on all kinds of different roles, but related to being on the selling side, it's not about you coming and talking and trying to impress with how fantastic is what you have, right?
Right.
But it's really more of 80%, so to speak, and of course it's not the hard number, but like the majority of the conversation focused on understanding what your situation, what you need, what you're trying to accomplish, what are your fears, what are your challenges, what are your goals, and so on. And then after you understand all of that, saying, hey, why don't we take a moment to see if what I do can help in some of those aspects, right? And then the person is like asking for more. And that's the way your business conversation should go, right? Get the other person, or your person you're dating, right? Get the other person asking you for more, and not tell you, okay, I got it, I heard enough from you. Let me take a breath, right?
Yeah, I think people, especially in business, really sense that. They know when they feel shafted. They know when they feel taken advantage of. And especially that goes for dating. People know when someone is hyping themselves up, or they feel insecure and they try to put on like a fake confidence with flashing how much money they have or certain things. I think people definitely sense that. People are very emotional. Humans are very emotional creatures, and we're intuitive. We're receptive to that.
Yes, definitely.
Let me get to some of these comments real quick. We got Fifi in the chat. Sorry it's taking me a while, guys. I'm really into this conversation. Chandler saying, I think regardless of the situation, I love Dylan dearly. Well, thank you, Chandler. I love you too, buddy. Randall, I like talking about my achievements. Well, I love hearing about your achievements, Randall, because you're always taking like another step every day. So I love hearing about your achievements, because Randall is one of our active viewers, and he has a hard time walking. And so I love hearing about how much he can actually do, because progressively, since he's joined the podcast, I think you were only able to do like 6 steps. Now, how many are you up to? I know it's more than 12 now. And this man has been working hard. He's been persistent and diligent with it. Dell saying, have you figured me out? Dell, you're a closed case, man. I don't know. Let's see. Basic sales technique, build rapport and qualify needs of the customer. Absolutely. And Juan, thank you for the sub, man. I really appreciate it. So we spent a lot of the podcast talking about the success mind state, but you have this whole other area. you work for big tech companies like IBM, trying to figure out how their cloud storage works, talking about disruptive innovation and how AI impacts that. Can we hear
Yeah,
a little bit more about AI and what your thought process is on that?
absolutely. And let me just share something. Lately, IBM is not so much, in the news about many things that are happening in the industry. So for context, for some, especially younger generation, right? IBM is a 100+ year old company, 108-year-old company. Um, Fortune 500 since the beginning of the Fortune 500 list, IBM has been there. We have roughly 400,000 employees around the world. So really, really large company. And we are doing very, very interesting things. The company has transformed itself over the many years, right? Over the many waves of innovation and self-transformation, going from creating machines to the data center, to software, to professional services. Today, IBM is leading in very interesting areas that go from, of course, cloud computing and something, a newer kind of step from that, which is known as the containerization of cloud, and which is the portability of cloud applications, and artificial intelligence through our brand Watson, blockchain, we're the leading provider of blockchain for enterprise solutions, quantum computing. We offer quantum computing through our cloud, and edge computing, in IoT, Internet of Things, and supporting now the 5G. So really, really kind of the cutting edge of innovation. And so those are many, many very interesting areas where IBM is working. That's what attracted me to come to IBM. You asked me about artificial intelligence, just one of those many areas there. So we have the brand Watson, and through that brand, we offer solutions for artificial intelligence across all industries to help companies transform themselves. And really, it's artificial intelligence is all about the data, right?
Right.
You get users and you get data, and from that data, the system, the artificial intelligence system, in this case IBM's Watson, right, has the ability to understand that data and draw conclusions and learn from that data over time on its own, without any coding, without any processing, without human interaction. The system is able to learn and improve, right? Simple algorithms like what you see on apps that you use, like Netflix, right? That when you go and you open the interface, the app, you get recommendations that are relevant to you, Dylan. And those are different to the one that I get. And that's based on artificial intelligence algorithms that are in the back end, that are analyzing data on what you do, how you rank it, and based on that kind of predicts what you like, and in a very, very effective way. That's a simple example. But then there are many more complex examples, right, that are used by governments of cities to improve all kinds of things, right? So at all industries, it's a fascinating technology, and overall, it's a fascinating industry to be a part of. That is changing too fast.
So do you think that I know a lot of people are skeptical about AI, and they're skeptical about the way that it is integrating their information and offering you material based off of your preferences and your search history. Do you think that has any truth to it? Should people be skeptical about it? Like,
there is a balance, right? So privacy is the key word there.
right.
Privacy, right? And so different companies have different privacy policies, right? And, from Facebook and Google, whose business comes out of using your data, for example, your searches or something, and based on that, pretty much they sell your information, right?
Mm-hmm.
For advertisers to hit you with things that they think will be relevant to you. Based on that artificial intelligence algorithm, they sell you stuff. So you become the object, right? The product of those companies. And so everyone has a different level of tolerance for privacy.
Right.
And it's a continuum, right? The more you
Mhm.
give up your privacy, there are some benefits that come with it, because you get, for example, recommendations that are relevant to you. But to which extent do you want to give up your privacy, right? Like Amazon just is talking about launching some surveillance kind of drone system to provide a security system, integrated security for your home. And now you're going to be under surveillance, your entire home, by Amazon. and they're collecting that data. So to which, and that's just one of the new things that
Right.
are common, right? Not all already out there.
Yeah, of course.
So do you want to do that? Do I want to do that? Do I want to have some kind of camera recording me? I don't, but every person has a different, level of tolerance. So the answer is your level of tolerance related to your privacy,
Right.
whatever is good for you. And every person should have the right to know what is being done with their information and have the right to choose, to opt in or out for anything that is done with what they do. That's the whole GDPR that came from Europe, right?
Mm-hmm.
To protect, the integrity of the information of the users. IBM, for example, we are in the cloud, and specifically with artificial intelligence, is in our terms and conditions, right, in our contract, that we will not use our customers' data. And IBM is an enterprise company, so we sell large, complex solutions for enterprises, more than one-on-one for like users like Facebook, like
right?
You and I, right? It's large, complex solutions for large enterprises that are like Zoom and all the others that provide all the infrastructure for things to happen, like this conversation here over the computer, right? But so IBM has some terms and conditions.
Mm-hmm.
We do not use our customers' data for any purpose other than what you use it for your own purposes, for your own algorithms. So, for example, IBM is very, very much thinking that your data is yours. We, as the vendor, should not be messing up with it. That's IBM's belief. That's my belief.
Yeah, IBM is definitely one of the companies that is more trustworthy, credible, reliable. It's companies like Facebook and Google and that I question, and I think Bogey questions too. The reservations people have against using data for children and targeting ads to vulnerable populations such as those, or even the elderly. So I think that's where a lot of the security concerns come in. And as with most things, you're right. It turns out it's a balance. You kind of agree to these things the second you sign on to Google or make a Facebook profile.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm a part of it, right? I have agreed to it. So I'm you just need to know what your tolerance. That's
right.
it.
My uncle is in the chat, and he was a CIO for a long time, and he loves cybersecurity, and he is all about privacy. So, I mean, he puts up firewalls on everything. So he asked the question, how IBM... Wait, am I getting this right? Okay, hold on. In simple terms, how will AI, blockchain, and IBM cloud services integrate to help solve business problems and innovate business processes and models?
Yeah, well, we're doing it, across the board, across all industries. It could be, I would need a couple hours to talk about so many cases, right?
Of course.
With Walmart, for example, we launched through our blockchain and our Internet of Things platform and our cloud platform. We launched a consortium that started with Walmart, and now it has included all of the people, including that supply chain of distributors and so on for food, to be able to track whenever there is something in the store that needs to be recalled. That was taking Walmart sometimes multiple weeks to figure out what was the source of the outbreak of salmonella or whatever. And that actually cost not just money, but human lives. People were dying as a result of that. If there was like some meat, for example, that was, infected for whatever reason.
Right.
When they figure out, so thanks to, for example, IBM technology with blockchain, when you go to Walmart, that little code is being tracked through blockchain, and they can track it down to the specific farm that was the origin of the outbreak, and then they can now identify it in minutes instead of weeks.
Wow, that's cool.
And save lives. That's just an example that is saving lives. But then I can tell you examples from the different technologies across all kinds of industries, right? That we are doing very, very, very interesting indeed. And since the source of the question is, of course, linked to cybersecurity, right? So with the most advanced security capabilities in the industry, we just signed an agreement with Bank of America where we launched the first, we call it Financial Services Ready Cloud. and that enables, and that meets more than 300 requirements for compliance and security for Bank of America to host their critical applications with critical customer information, bank account, and very important information on the IBM cloud. And then as a result of that, we got other banks, BNP Paribas in Europe, and more than 30, ISB partners to join the consortium. And this is going to lead to, multiple financial services companies being able to host highly, I'm missing the word, applications that have high requirements of compliance and security, right?
Right.
Being able to be hosted safely in the IBM cloud.
Oh,
So
wow.
many
Okay.
I don't want to lose all of your audience talking about IBM. I love to do that.
That's okay. I'm really interested. This is more for me now.
Yeah, many examples across all industries of very interesting things we're doing. I can say that.
So I've been wanting to ask this question, and it's pertaining to disruptive innovation and the advancement of technology. So do you think that technology, especially AI, is accelerating this process? Like, it's making it more and more and more and more and more competitive, where people are it's almost sort of finding new solutions using the algorithms it's sourcing?
Yeah. So the thing with technology is that it builds on itself. So every time, and that's why the innovation core has an exponential growth. It's not an incremental, but an exponential growth. And that's because every little innovation, every little new technology, right? So if you have two little things, right, with those two things, you could create three solutions. But then when you have another technology, again, it's exponential. Now you can create 9 solutions. You have another one, you can create, 36 solutions, and it's exponential. Why? Because they build in each other. It's like a net. It's like a spider web of connections. And the more technology innovations that are there, it just becomes so much more possible to do so many things, right? So now the conditions exist, for example, to what is called now the digital transformation, which is bringing everything to the digital world, right? That's why now industries like the transportation industry was completely disrupted by companies like Uber and Lyft. Like the accommodation industry was completely disrupted by Airbnb. And for example, Airbnb doesn't own any single piece of real estate, right? Maybe other than their headquarters building, I don't know. But they don't own like hotel places, right? And yet they are valued more than Hilton or Marriott, right? And Uber is valued more than General Motors, and they don't own any single car. So they've come and disrupted all of these industries. And again, Netflix completely disrupted and got out of business a Blockbuster. And as you go, and Apple, right, came and took out of business many companies, like Kodak, right? Who would think that Apple would be owning that industry? And Amazon came and disrupted so many other industries. And so it's because those conditions are there that you have all the pieces to have geolocation and search and what is called APIs, application programming interfaces, so that all of these technologies can connect very easily one with each other, and you can have in your hand, all of these applications with which you can do all kinds of things in a very easy way. Right. So yes, technology definitely is facilitating and accelerating many changes. Right.
So I guess my follow-up question is then, will the technology eliminate the need for us to individually innovate? Like, again, Amazon, how it's completely disrupting the retail industry. Now there's no retail stores. Like, I mean, everybody's pretty much switched over to Amazon because it's convenient. It's easy. So, I mean, is there any repercussion to this? And, is there any sign that we're slowing down, or are we speeding up?
We're speeding up, and there's no going back. I mean, there are like 29 retailers, I think, so far in 2020 that have filed bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Retailers. And on the other side of that coin, Amazon is hiring, right? Growing exponentially. So there is no slowing down. This is going fast. And really, this question actually is the closing comment that I wanted to make, and I didn't, which is technology is a facilitator for innovation, and it has many benefits for humanity. but it needs to be created, managed in an ethical way, in a humane way that
Right.
serves humanity, right? And so technology should always serve humanity. And in many cases, it is replacing many jobs, right? So that's a matter of fact in many types of roles that have been automated and they don't require a human anymore. We're talking now about the self-driving car industry that may replace millions of jobs, right? So the social divide is becoming bigger between the kind of highly skilled people who are able to kind of belong to this new intelligence and knowledge economy, and the people who were just labor workers that are every time being replaced because it's cheaper to pay $100,000 once for a little robot that doesn't take vacation, doesn't sleep, doesn't eat, and works 24 hours, 365 days a year, right? So certainly many jobs are being replaced. Now, I'm still optimistic and based on some data as well. So it's not just, light optimism, but based on data that technology is also creating many new possibilities, many
Right.
new type of jobs. But in between those two conflicting points, unfortunately, it's my view that technology is moving much faster than it's being able to create the new jobs that are needed, right?
Hmm.
And so we have a social problem, certainly, and overpopulation and many other problems that we will need to figure out as societies. In my opinion, we're overpopulated. One of the main problems that should be addressed is population control, right? To find not the maximum level of humans that can exist, but the optimal levels
Right.
of humans that
In
should exist.
fact, and I don't want to get too political because if I do that, we're going over time. But
We're gonna for sure lose 50% of the audience.
oh, my uncle said he's not lost. He said he finds this interesting and fascinating. um, but that was the argument for one of the political candidates this year, and he was arguing that based off the acceleration of technology, it's going to displace a lot of the workforce. And he said that that was his argument for basic universal income. And so, I haven't gotten too deep into it. I don't really know how to argue for it or against it. But, it does make sense to a degree alongside of the rise of technology as we're moving forward. I mean, like you said, I don't think it's slowing down at all.
Absolutely, and again, without getting political either, but just staying focused on the technology and the ethical implications of technology, which I think is a fascinating subject in itself, right? The ethical implications of technology, such an important subject, the humanity and the need for humanity in technology, and the responsibility on us, the people in technology industry, of keeping those two aspects in mind, right? Humanity and ethics. There's a long way to go, right? And for many different aspects. And I'm not talking about handing over anything to anyone, but for example, these corporations that can raise hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars, get multi-billion-dollar valuations in a matter of a couple of years, and it's benefiting anywhere between 1 and 20 people that are the main stockholders, right? And it's not benefiting the people who work. I've always said it, as a company grows, everybody who participates there and all the ecosystem that it serves should benefit from it, right? Society should benefit from it. And so there are many things that are needed, certainly. I'm aware of them.
Alrighty. I'm gonna ask a couple more questions and then we'll wrap up here. So we have my uncle saying you need Watson or fast technologies to compute to derive information in order for businesses to make sound decisions. He said, "You didn't lose me. It's fascinating."
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Cade says, when am I doing the WAP, Cade? That'll be Thursday, buddy. We're not doing it tonight. Totally joking. I'm opening up a flower shop. What, Chandler? Let's see. I have a request to ask you. Do you like anime?
Do I?
Yes. Do you like anime? It's just a random question.
I don't dislike it. It's just not I'm not into it, right? So I'm kind of neutral to it.
I got you. There you go, Bogey. That's for you, buddy. Should technology serve mankind or should it serve men? What? I think you mean, should technology serve mankind or should mankind serve technology?
Yeah, no, well, certainly the first one, right?
Yeah, the former.
Kind of links. I guess it was maybe a rhetorical point based on the conversation, right?
Right.
Yes, certainly technology should have that, service to humanity.
And then we have the final point that says, oh, and my mom, who is awesomely in the chat, I love you, Mom.
Hello.
She says, I was just about to ask that question, Dylan, about the job loss based on technology. The most important thing is to invest in people regardless of skill set. And the last point we have is there are jobs that have not been invented yet. For those who are born today, technology will create new ways of doing things in the future.
Correct. Yeah, that links to that point, certainly. And again, so I was being kind of flexible in going in all directions,
Of
right?
course.
Every subject has degrees of complexity and has multiple angles, and it's important to understand all of them. But as I said during the conversation, I'm optimistic and I'm positive, and I am fascinated by the possibilities that technology not only has in a conceptual way, but actually has proven to have, right? It has brought incredible improvements in healthcare, right? Can be remote surgeries, in education with new ways of delivering, knowledge, like the Khan Academy, Udemy, and so many other ways, right? That, I mean, just what we're doing, these technologies that bring people together,
Right.
whatever you are, it's fantastic capabilities. And audiobooks that I listen to when I'm, commuting. There are so many fantastic things that technology brings to make our lives better, right? And let's not forget, technology is not just kind of software. Technology and innovation has been there for so many, many, many years, and it has been evolving, and it gives us all the comfort that we have from using the microwave at home and cooking in 2 minutes instead of half an hour, to all other thousands you going in your car, having a little, a remote control, so many things, right? So technology is fantastic and is having a positive impact in life. And I personally aim to be a positive force within this industry with what I do.
Perfect. That's the perfect way to wrap up, guys. We got Wes joining in. Wes, thank you for joining in. I know we're about to wrap up, but thank you for stopping by. He says, unless you work at McDonald's, that's going fully automated for sure. And then we got It-Man in here. What's up, buddy? He says, will I finally be able to have a robot girlfriend? Oh, that's a different podcast for a different episode, buddy. Thanks for the podcast. I'm happy I can be here. Well, thank you, Garen. I really appreciate it. This has been Mr. Pavel. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate this conversation. It has been fantastic. I'm gonna have to have you back on because I sidetracked a lot of the chat because I was so into it. So thank you so much. I'm gonna keep you here. I'm gonna raid somebody on Twitch so we can keep the community going. And then afterwards, I will let me keep you here for just a few seconds. And then we'll wrap up on this side, and I promise I won't take too much of your time.
And thank you for having me here, and thank you to your audience.
Well, thank you. Holy Schmitty, that's his name. IDT.
Which city do you have in the back?
I think this is New York. This is a green screen. This is not my.
No, I know it's just green, but I was wondering.
Yes, I promise. I wish this is where I lived. Wouldn't this be awesome?
That's your view.
This would be beautiful. So we're gonna raid my buddy over here. He's just chatting. So you guys show him some love. Hashtag Dream Team when you guys get in there. Spam the emote. I love each and every one of you. Thank you. If you're tuning in on YouTube, thank you so much. I will send you the link after this, so that way you can have it and do whatever you want. I'm gonna raid now. Thank you guys. Take it easy.